Thank you, gentlemen, for being here today and for your comments. I'd like to go to Dr. Michelle and then would also invite any other comments from the panel as well. But as we know, the Federal Reserve is mandated by Congress to ensure price stability and promote maximum employment. But it was only in 2012 that the Fed publicly made it known that it had a 2% inflation target. Dr. Michelle, your testimony describes some of the reasons the Fed has used to justify the 2% target. And practically speaking, what does it mean to target a constantly positive rate of inflation? Is it fair to think about it as debasing the value of the dollar by 2% a year? I think there's a lot of focus on this 2% inflation number. I'd like to hear your comments on that.
That's fair. That's an accurate way of looking at it. The most common sort of reason given is that the Fed needs to keep inflation going so that the economy keeps moving, sort of a grease the wheels thing, and motive rather. And there's a lot of academic research that suggests that that's not really the way that that works. And if you do have a growing economy, an increasing supply, everything else constant, you should see prices come down. There's more goods and services available. They should become less expensive. We prevent that from happening. And I don't solely blame the Fed, because there is a fiscal component, a spending component to that. But in conjunction, I do blame federal policy, partly on the Fed side, for trying to ensure that the price level never falls. And contrary to what Mr. Sherman believes, it is perfectly okay, and it has been historically, to have a gently falling price level. It does not mean that there's a calamity. There's a huge difference between a collapse in asset prices and a gently falling price level.
Yeah.
And the latter is not a bad thing, it's a good thing.
I mean, supply and demand dictates price levels to a point, but it feels like we're also trying to manipulate the market to hit this 2% number. Mr. Wang, would you want to comment, or you're shaking your head there like you're...
No, I agree. So the 2% target is something the Fed has set itself, whereas the mandate given by Congress is price stability. It seems like that could be defined by Congress if it were of their choosing.
Yeah.
So I like the definitions that Chairman Volcker and Greenspan gave to price stability. That is, inflation low enough that people don't have to take account of it in their everyday activities. And I think we have a lot of evidence that 2% reaches that. No one was talking about inflation when inflation was 2 or just a little under through the teens, or 2 in the early 2000s. So I think, and another, Dr. Michelle is right that one of the reasons that people favor a little bit of inflation is it greases the wheels of the, and I have some empirical studies that I can counter him with, but I think another reason is the level of nominal interest rates. So expected inflation gets built into nominal rates. If nominal rates are already at 1 or 0 and something bad happens to the economy, there's very little the Fed can do to lower interest rates, and it'll be forced into buying securities. So keeping nominal rates high enough to embody that 2% inflation and a 1 or 2% real rate, 4% means in equilibrium, and then something bad happens, then the Fed has 4 percentage points to lower interest rates to stimulate the economy without resorting to QE.
I mean, I know my district, I don't want to come to you, Mr. Consul, I know my district's full of small businesses, manufacturing, agriculture, and to anticipate these marks is sometimes difficult. It's more important to look at where you're at in the business and where do you believe you can make profits. Mr. Consul, would you?
I was just going to amplify, the committee seems very concerned about the level of balance sheet, and that is something that people wonder about. But if we were trying to target 0% inflation, the balance sheet would be much more volatile, because that would basically be the only tool you have.
So you think the 2% target is the right target?
I personally prefer a 1 to 3% target. It has served New Zealand and many other countries that have really fantastic macroeconomic concerns. I think the point target is a little hard and gets into this averaging question that the Fed is currently doing. There's actually a wide variety, and I think it would be a great thing for the task force to study.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I'll yield back the balance of my time, but I do think supply and demand economics is critical for our country to be really successful.